A woman broke down in tears today, whispering through sobs as she accused one of hip-hop's most powerful moguls of raping her in his own bed. But here's the question that has everyone asking tonight: how many more victims will step forward before this trial ends? Welcome to our breaking coverage of Day 12 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trafficking trial. The courtroom was gripped by silence today as a woman testifying under the pseudonym Maya broke down in tears while describing what she characterized as years of sexual abuse at the hands of her former boss, Sean Combs. The former personal assistant, whose identity is being protected for privacy reasons, delivered some of the most harrowing testimony the jury has heard to date. Maya testified that during her employment with the Bad Boy Records founder, Combs repeatedly sexually assaulted her, including at least 2 instances of rape. In one particularly disturbing allegation, she described how Combs allegedly climbed into her bed and raped her. The witness struggled to maintain her composure, often speaking in barely audible whispers as she recounted the alleged abuse. "I felt so desperate and terrified and trapped," Mia testified through tears, adding that she believed it was my fault. This self-blame, according to experts who have followed the case, is consistent with patterns often seen in victims of sexual abuse by powerful figures. Perhaps most chilling was her revelation about the psychological impact of the alleged abuse. "I was going to die with this," she said, describing how she had been determined to take these alleged assaults to the grave rather than come forward. The testimony painted a picture of Combs as a controlling and abusive employer who wielded his power to exploit and intimidate those around him. Mia described punishment for anything done without Combs' permission as unpredictable and terrifying, suggesting a climate of fear within his organization. Beyond her own alleged victimization, Mia also served as a crucial corroborating witness to the prosecution's star witness, Cassie Ventura. Mia testified that during her time as Combs' assistant, she witnessed frequent bouts of violence that Combs subjected Ventura to during their tumultuous relationship. This testimony is particularly significant because it provides independent verification of Ventura's earlier claims about the abuse she endured. Ventura, who testified for 4 emotional days during the first week of the trial, described years of physical and sexual abuse at Combs' hands, including being forced to participate in what prosecutors term freak-offs, elaborate parties that Combs allegedly orchestrated and filmed. The consistency between Mia's observations and Ventura's first-hand account strengthens the prosecution's narrative that Combs operated what they characterize as a criminal enterprise built on violence, coercion, and sexual exploitation. Today's testimony from Mia represents a critical moment in the prosecution's case. She is among what prosecutors have described as a handful of government witnesses whose accusations go to the heart of the government's case against Combs. This makes her the second woman to directly accuse Combs of rape during the trial, following Ventura's testimony. The pattern of allegations from multiple women who worked closely with Combs helps prosecutors build their argument that the defendant engaged in a systematic pattern of sexual abuse and trafficking. Legal experts watching the case note that having multiple victims testify to similar patterns of abuse can be particularly powerful for juries, as it suggests deliberate criminal behavior rather than isolated incidents. The emotional nature of Mia's testimony, including her visible distress and struggle to speak about the alleged abuse, may also resonate strongly with jurors. However, the defense will likely attempt to challenge her credibility and motivations during cross-examination. In a significant development for trial scheduling, prosecutors announced today that they are running ahead of their original timeline. The government now expects to rest their case by the second week of June, potentially several days earlier than their initial projection of June 20th. This acceleration suggests that the prosecution feels confident in the strength of their case and may be streamlining their witness list to focus on their most compelling evidence. Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen commented that prosecutors are looking to cut some witnesses from their planned lineup. However, this timeline shift has created new concerns for the defense team. Lead defense attorney Mark Agnifilo suggested that the trial may now bump up against the July 4th holiday, potentially extending into a period when court schedules are typically disrupted. The defense team faced continued frustrations today regarding their access to their client. For the second time, Agnifilo petitioned the court for extended access to Combs, who is being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Defense attorneys are requesting permission to hold meetings with Combs at the courthouse until 10 p.m., citing the need for adequate preparation time given the complexity of the case and the volume of evidence. The restricted access at the federal detention facility has been an ongoing concern for the defense team throughout the trial. This access issue highlights the challenges facing defendants in high-profile federal cases, where pretrial detention in facilities with limited attorney access can potentially impact the quality of legal representation. Maya's testimony is expected to continue through Friday afternoon, meaning jurors will hear additional details about her allegations against Combs. The prosecution indicated that her testimony could extend through the end of the week, suggesting there may be substantial additional evidence to present. The defense will then have their opportunity for cross-examination, which could prove crucial for their strategy. Defense attorneys have consistently argued that while Combs may have engaged in other criminal behavior, the specific charges of trafficking and racketeering do not apply to his actions. As we've seen throughout this trial, the defense has attempted to portray the Sewell encounters described by witnesses as consensual, albeit involving someone who could be violent in other contexts. They are expected to challenge Maya's account and explore any potential motivations she might have for testifying against her former employer. Today's testimony continues to paint a disturbing picture of alleged criminal behavior by one of hip-hop's most successful entrepreneurs. Combs, who founded Bad Boy Records in 1993 and built a multimedia empire, has seen his reputation and business interests crumble since his September arrest. The trial has pulled back the curtain on what prosecutors describe as a deviant empire of exploitation, revealing alleged details about Combs' private life that stand in stark contrast to his public persona as a successful businessman and cultural icon. With 3 Grammy wins and 14 nominations, along with successful ventures in fashion, alcohol, and reality television, Combs had been considered one of the most influential figures in entertainment. The ongoing trial represents a dramatic fall from grace for the man who once went by Puff Daddy and later simply Diddy. In a personal note amid the serious legal proceedings, it was revealed that Cassie Ventura, the prosecution's star witness who testified earlier in the trial, has given birth to her 3rd child. Ventura and her husband Alex Fine welcomed a son, joining their 2 young daughters. Celebrity stylist Deont Nash, who testified yesterday, mentioned that he had spoken with Ventura to congratulate her on the birth. This development underscores the human element of this case, real people whose lives have been forever changed by the events at the center of these criminal charges. As a reminder, Combs faces severe potential consequences if convicted. The federal charges include racketeering conspiracy, trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. If found guilty on all counts, he could face life in prison. The racketeering charge alleges that Combs operated a criminal enterprise through his businesses, using violence, threats, and coercion to protect his interests and facilitate criminal activity. The trafficking charges specifically relate to his alleged coercion of women into shul activities for his benefit. Beyond the criminal trial, Combs faces more than 70 sexual assault lawsuits filed since November 2023. These civil cases include allegations from multiple women spanning decades, suggesting a pattern of alleged misconduct throughout his career. The criminal trial represents the most serious legal challenge Combs has faced, as it carries the possibility of life imprisonment and represents the full weight of federal law enforcement's investigation into his alleged criminal enterprise. Day 12 of the Sean Combs trial will be remembered as a pivotal moment in what has already been a shocking and emotional proceeding. Maya's testimony added another layer to the prosecution's narrative of systematic abuse and criminal behavior, while raising the stakes for both sides as the case progresses. With the prosecution ahead of schedule and potentially wrapping up their case within the next 2 weeks, the defense will soon have their opportunity to present their side of the story. The question remains whether they can successfully challenge the mounting testimony from multiple alleged victims and witnesses. The trial continues Friday morning with the continuation of Mia's testimony, followed by what promises to be an aggressive cross-examination from Combs' defense team. As this landmark case moves toward its conclusion, the stakes couldn't be higher for all involved. We'll continue following every development in this historic trial. For continuing coverage of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial, stay with us. This has been your comprehensive Day 12 update from Manhattan Federal Court.